will be passing it on to Katie from the Department of Education and Training. So Katie, on to you if you'd like to say a few words and share your screen for the next 30 minutes.
Sure thing. Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks everybody for joining today. My name's Katie. I work for the New South Wales Department of Education. And before I begin, I'd just like to personally acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which I'm delivering this presentation, the Darawal people of the Eora Nation. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands from which each of you are joining me today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal people in attendance today. First, I'd like to start by congratulating you all on choosing teaching as a career. It's a profession that has such a positive impact on the lives of others. Over the next 30 minutes, I'll share some information about the New South Wales Department of Education and the opportunities available to teachers in Australia's largest education system. I'll encourage you all to send through any questions or comments that you have through the presentations. I'll leave a little bit of time at the end to get to those. And if there are any questions I don't respond to, please feel free to head into our virtual booth and we'll be able to answer them there for you as well. So before I tell you more about the benefits and opportunities the New South Wales Department of Education has to offer, I just want to quickly go over the importance of public education and why having high quality teachers in New South Wales public schools is so critical. So New South Wales public schools provide all children and young people with equal access to education. Public schools are at the centre of every community and each uphold the core values of valuing all people, empowering individuals of all socio-economic backgrounds to pursue improved outcomes, contributing to reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians, and celebrating cultural and linguistic diversity. As I mentioned earlier, the New South Wales Department of Education is the largest education system in Australia. And given the size and scale of the department, you'll have the opportunity to work in a diverse range of schools: primary, secondary, community, selective, hospital, sporting, agricultural, and schools for specific purposes, just to name a few. What's really significant is that despite these varied settings you might work in, all 88,000 employees uphold the values of public education. We hold students at the centre of all decision making and believe that every student should be known, valued and cared for in our schools. We also believe that if we're to prepare young people for rewarding and productive lives in a complex and changing world, we need to be a truly inclusive workplace where all employees feel welcome and valued. New South Wales public schools reflect Australian communities with our students and staff coming from a diverse range of cultural and linguistic backgrounds. The New South Wales Department of Education is also very much invested in building and developing our schools for the future. We recognise that we're in the midst of an educational revolution where we're attempting to educate and prepare students for roles that don't even exist yet. This means that there's never really been a more exciting time to join the department and join the profession of teaching. Within New South Wales public schools, you'll be supported by teams like the Catalyst Labs, Education Futures and Technology for Learning, who are our design thinking, technology and innovation hubs, and they'll help you prepare your students for the world of tomorrow. To support teacher education students in becoming the best teachers they can be, the department also offers a range of scholarship programs every year. The benefits of these scholarships include guaranteed permanent position on completion of your degree, financial contributions towards your studies, and appointment allowances for when you begin working. Applications for our scholarship programs open around June each year, so make sure you head over to the Teach New South Wales website and subscribe to be alerted when these open. The great news is as well, the support doesn't stop there. So once you start teaching as a permanent or temporary teacher, you'll receive beginning teacher support to help you develop as a teacher at the start of your career. The support means you receive additional release time, so you'll get to work with a teacher mentor and develop your professional practice. You can use that additional release time to engage in lesson observations, develop or review lesson plans, implement effective classroom management strategies, or engage in professional discussion, personal reflection, or professional development. As you develop professionally, you'll also find a number of career development opportunities that are available to you. You can progress down a lead path as an assistant principal, head teacher, deputy principal, school principal, or executive principal. Alternatively, if you want to develop as a teacher within the classroom, you can choose to become a highly accomplished teacher. And they're just some of the things that make the New South Wales Department of Education a great place to work. So in addition to those professional benefits I was just talking about, the department also offers competitive salaries for graduates and early career teachers. So the first day that you commence work as a casual teacher with the New South Wales Department of Education, you'll actually be able to earn $373 a day, and that's an opportunity that's available to you in the last year of your studies. And when you obtain a temporary or permanent teaching position, you'll start on a salary of $72,263 per annum. So that salary doesn't include superannuation or annual leave loading either. And you'll also receive that beginning teacher support from a teacher mentor within your school. And then when you complete your proficient accreditation, so after 2 years, your salary will then jump to $87,157 annually. So the progression doesn't end once you reach proficient teacher accreditation status either. So as well as offering the opportunity to make a difference and shape the lives of young people, teaching is a career that actually offers continuous progression and promotion opportunities. So as you continue to develop and improve your teaching practice, you'll have the opportunity to take on various responsibilities and develop higher level leadership skills. So throughout your career, you'll have the opportunity to apply for positions like assistant principal or head teacher. So you can lead teaching and learning practices within a stage group or key learning area and progress to higher level school management positions like deputy principal, principal, and executive principal roles. So as I mentioned earlier, each year the New South Wales Department of Education offers a range of scholarships to university students to support you while you study and help you become highly effective teachers. The scholarships are a really great way to kickstart your career in a New South Wales public school, and they offer a range of benefits, including financial support while you study, appointment allowances, and a guaranteed permanent teaching position once you finish your degree. 2021 applications for scholarships haven't opened yet, so I can't show you exactly what these entail, but I can give you an idea of what scholars received last year. So the Teacher Education Scholarship supports you to become a future teacher of a high demand subject area. So in 2020, these subject areas were mathematics, science with specialisation in physics, selected technological and applied studies subjects, so design and technology, engineering studies, industrial tech, metal, graphics, multimedia, and agriculture, inclusive or special education, and English in combination with history, so ancient and or modern history. A number of teacher education scholarships are on offer each year, and the benefits of this scholarship include $7,500 per year of full-time study, a $6,000 appointment allowance, which you get once you're appointed to your first teaching position, and a guaranteed permanent teaching position once you successfully complete your degree. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner of the slide here, there's a QR code. So if this is a scholarship that's of interest to you, definitely scan it with your phone and you can subscribe to be alerted when applications open for this scholarship in June this year. So the Teacher Education Scholarship Aboriginal is an identified scholarship for Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders. So the scholarship supports you to study to become a primary teacher, secondary teacher across any key learning area, or a special education teacher. A number of these scholarships are on offer each year with the same benefits as a teacher education scholarship from the previous slide. It's important to note as well that Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders are also encouraged to apply for other future teacher scholarships if other programs align better with their plans following education. So for example, the Teach Rural Scholarship that I'll discuss now. So the Teach Rural Scholarship is a great option if you'd like to make a difference teaching in a rural or remote school setting. Recipients of this scholarship can train to teach in any subject area, so primary or secondary, and will be offered a permanent teaching position in a rural or remote public school once they've successfully completed their degree. There's a number of rural and remote locations across the state, and scholars have the option of selecting location preferences in the final year of their degree. So the Teach Rural Scholarship offers incentives like up to $50,000 in equivalent course contribution payments, which basically reduces the amount of money that you have to pay on your HECS or HELP. You'll also receive $7,500 per year of full-time study, a $6,000 appointment allowance, which you'll receive when you're appointed to your first teaching position, $500 per week when completing your prac in a rural or remote New South Wales public school, and also a guaranteed permanent position once you've successfully completed your degree. The Teach Maths Now Scholarship, that's been designed specifically for future teachers of mathematics. So existing IT students training to become mathematics teachers, career changers, and university students in non-education related mathematics degrees are eligible to apply for this scholarship. A number of Teach Maths Now scholarships are available each year, and the incentives for this scholarship include up to $50,000 in equivalent course contribution payments. So again, that reduces the amount of money that you need to pay towards your HECS or HELP. $5,000 per year of full-time study, $10,000 appointment allowance, so you'll receive that once you're appointed to your first teaching position, $500 a week when you're completing your prac in a New South Wales public school, and a guaranteed permanent teaching position once you successfully completed your degree. So the last scholarship program that I'll talk to you about is a graduate teacher scholarship. So this is designed for students in their final year of study. The scholarship is available to future teachers of mathematics, science with specialisation in physics, selected technological and applied sciences, so design and tech, engineering studies, industrial technology, metal or graphics, multimedia and agriculture, and inclusive or special education. The graduate teacher scholarship offers a $5,000 training allowance and a permanent teaching position when you graduate. So now that you know a little bit more about the New South Wales Department of Education and some of the great opportunities that are available to teachers in New South Wales public schools, you might be wondering a little bit about the process of becoming approved to teach and how to find work. So the approval to teach process is mandatory for all teachers who wish to work in New South Wales public schools. And the good thing is that you can actually get started early and begin this process when you're in the final 2 semesters of your degree. If you're not in the last 2 semesters of your degree yet, you don't need to get started on the following steps, but it can be really helpful to know this ahead of time, and then you'll be ready to apply when you're in your final year of study. So the steps in the approval to teach process. The first step is to obtain your paid New South Wales Working with Children check and NSW conditional accreditation, which Beverly spoke about before. Then you'll need to visit the Teach New South Wales website and start your application. Just remember to use an email address that you'll be checking regularly and you will have access to after you graduate, because most of our correspondence is done through email. Then the second step, so that's your chance to select the areas or schools that you'd like to work in and upload your mandatory documentation. You won't have your final transcripts at this stage, and that's completely fine. You'll just need to upload the most up-to-date documents that you have. If you're wanting to work as a casual prior to graduation, make sure to select request interim approval at this step. And this is also where you can apply for the Aboriginal initiative, which indicates your interest in working with schools with high Aboriginal enrolment. You don't need to be an Aboriginal person to apply. There are a couple of extra steps to take though, so just make sure you read more about the initiative on our website. And then once you've received submitted your application and it's been successfully assessed, you receive an email that advises you that it's now time to complete your online teacher suitability assessments and online interview. You'll have 5 calendar days from receiving your email to complete your assessments and do your online interview. And then finally, you will need to upload your final transcript once it's released from the university and you will gain your full approval to teach. So just a little bit of advice about completing your online interview. So make sure you read the preparation materials that are emailed to you and complete your interview within the allocated time frame. So you'll have 1 hour to complete this interview. Make sure to present yourself professionally, both in dress and environment. So try to also find a quiet space to complete your interview. Remember that the questions that you'll be asked during your interview are based on the Australian Professional Standards for Teaching. So you can find these standards in detail on the ETSF website, and try to also include examples in your interview, especially ones that demonstrate your understanding of graduate standards and how you've demonstrated that you can meet those standards effectively in a school environment. It's also helpful to reflect on your personal teaching philosophy, your knowledge of New South Wales Department of Education policies, your knowledge of the Australian curriculum in New South Wales and the New South Wales Department of Education's child protection procedures. That will assist you in demonstrating your competence in relation to these standards. As you know, a number of incredible teaching opportunities exist in Metro Sydney, but there are also a number of advantages to working in rural and remote New South Wales public schools. The department's focused on attracting the best and brightest teachers to some of the most remote parts of New South Wales, and because of this, there are a number of great financial and professional incentives on offer for rural teachers, in addition to some of the benefits that exist in going rural. So what do I mean when I say rural and remote New South Wales? The department has 33 rural and remote centres, so they're represented by the pin dots on that map there, and they span across the state, so Western New South Wales, Inland Southern New South Wales and Inland Northern New South Wales. And within each of these centres, or within all of these centres I should say, there are 155 incentivised schools that you can receive a range of benefits and incentives in. So by teaching in one of these locations, you'll actually have the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of students in rural and remote communities. You'll be able to kickstart your career with a number of permanent positions that are available in rural and remote schools, diversify your teaching experience in a rural setting. So you could be working in a central or community school, which spans all the way from kindergarten to year 12, or the school might have a different demographic to what you've experienced previously. I've travelled with the department across rural New South Wales and experienced firsthand some of the incredible teaching practices and facilities found rurally. You're really at the heart of the community, and the support and camaraderie of the staff and the friendly nature of everybody in the broader community is really appealing. In addition to that, really laid back lifestyle. It's also important to address a common misconception here when completing your approval to teach application, or as a New South Wales Department of Education scholar, you'll never be sent to a location that you haven't expressed an interest in working in. So, for example, if you select a willingness to be placed in inland southern New South Wales, you won't be placed in a Western New South Wales school. On the Teach New South Wales website, you can actually find an interactive version of this map, and you'll be able to explore all the different rural areas of New South Wales. When you select a specific area, you'll be able to see a list of the schools in the area and read about the attractions and services available. And we also have a bunch of great videos on our YouTube channel where you can hear firsthand from teachers working in rural and remote schools. So as I just mentioned, there are a number of major financial benefits available to teachers working in rural and remote New South Wales schools. Some of the benefits are varied depending on the number of points that the school attracts. So rural positions can be classified as 4-point, 6-point or 8-point schools, and that's determined on based on the remoteness of the location, with 8-point schools being the most remote and therefore attracting the highest incentives. Some of the incentives include the Rural Teacher Incentive. So that offers teachers between $20,000 and $30,000 per annum. An experienced teacher benefit of $10,000 per annum for a maximum of 5 years. So in this context, an experienced teacher is someone who's gained their NSW accreditation at the proficient level. And this can be completed 2 years after you graduate. So that's how quickly you could actually be claiming that incentive. There's also an annual retention benefit of $5,000 gross for a maximum of 10 years, and rental subsidies between 50% and 90%. So taking into account the number of financial incentives and the rental subsidies, a beginning teacher has the potential to be earning over 100K in their first year of teaching, on top of saving quite a significant amount in living expenses. If you'd like to find out more about those benefits available to teachers at specific schools or locations in New South Wales, you can head to the Teach New South Wales website, and we've got a really great benefits calculator there that you can use. So in addition to the financial benefits, there are some amazing professional and lifestyle benefits on offer to teachers in rural and remote schools. Before a permanent appointment to rural and remote school is confirmed, you'll be able to complete a 10-week trial placement before appointment. So you'll be able to get a bit of a feel for the school and the community before committing to your appointment. You'll also have access to additional training and development days to support your professional development as a beginning teacher and throughout your teaching career. And you'll also get up to 5 additional days of personal leave every year. There are increased opportunities for career progression in rural and remote locations too. So teachers can find that due to less competition in comparison to metropolitan schools, there's more opportunity to progress more quickly into leadership roles. You'll have the opportunity as well to see different parts of New South Wales and experience the attractions these locations have to offer. And you can also enjoy the lifestyle enhancements of living rural and remote. So reduced commute times, more affordable housing, more space, and the opportunity to be a part of a close-knit community. So as I mentioned earlier, once you've successfully completed the approvals to teach process, you'll gain your full approvals to teach. So this means that in addition to working as a casual teacher, you can teach on a permanent or temporary basis. So I'll just touch briefly on the 3 different employment types. So casual teachers are employed on a day-to-day basis to replace temporary or permanent teachers who are on short-term leave. So as a casual teacher, you're paid a daily rate, and that's based on your years of training and experience. And that's also loaded to include a component for sick leave and holiday pay. So many teachers begin their careers working casually because it offers a variety of flexibility, and it's a great way to develop your teaching practice and make connections with schools that can lead to longer-term temporary engagements. So New South Wales Department of Education schools use the Class Cover app to connect with casual teachers. Temporary teachers are employed on a full-time basis for at least 4 weeks to a maximum of 1 school year, or on a part-time basis for 2 or more school terms. Temporary teachers receive most of the entitlements of permanent teachers, including an annual salary, benefits and incentives, and access to beginning teacher support. Temporary contracts can be extended at the end of the year. So often temporary teachers remain at the school for more than 1 year. However, it also does, again, offer that degree of flexibility to move and develop your teaching practice in a number of different school settings. Permanent teachers, they have an ongoing role with the school and they have access to some additional opportunities. So the Rural Experience Program, the e-exchange or virtual e-exchange that we're running this year, and sponsored training programs to reskill or upskill in subject areas of need. So both temporary and permanent positions can be found in the Teach New South Wales Job Feed e-newsletter, which is sent every Wednesday. And then finally, to really maximise your employment prospects following graduation, definitely work on building and maintaining connections with the schools you complete your professional experience placements at, as well as offering valuable development opportunities to refine your teaching practice. Your practicum experiences are also a good chance for you to network and build connections with teacher colleagues and schools. So make the most of the opportunities on your practicum experiences to get involved, get to know the staff you're working with, and let them know you're available for casual work once you receive your interim number. Make sure to explore different locations and school settings. There are so many amazing locations and schools to teach in across New South Wales, and your chances of being matched to a permanent position are enhanced if you expand the locations that you'd like to work in. So use your prac placements as an opportunity to experience different settings you could potentially work in the future. For example, you may have opportunities through your studies to complete your placements in rural locations or various school settings like schools for specific purposes, which cater for students with moderate to high learning and support needs. Definitely apply for scholarship opportunities. So like I mentioned before, applications open around June each year. So make sure to visit the Teach New South Wales website and subscribe to be alerted when programs open. Make sure to complete your approval to teach application when you're in your final 2 semesters of study. We actually have a really good step-by-step guide on the Teach New South Wales website on how to complete that process. And once you have the final details of the dates of your final professional experience, you can request your casual interim number and you'll be able to go and teach on a casual basis before completing your degree. Once you receive this as well, you can start approaching schools directly to inquire about casual work and use the Class Cover app to manage your bookings. And then finally, once you've successfully completed the requirements of the approval to teach, you'll be granted your full approval to teach. So at this stage, you can start applying for advertised temporary and permanent positions that are listed in Job Feed each week. You can subscribe to Job Feed at any time and view the countless opportunities that are available with the New South Wales Department of Education. So thank you so much for your time today. If any questions have come through, I'll try to respond to them now. While I have a look at that, if you'd like to bring up the camera app on your phone, you can scan the QR codes that we have on the screen there to follow us on Facebook or Instagram. There's a lot of information for future teachers promoted on these pages, and you can also message us at any time if you have any questions about teachers and teaching in a New South Wales public school, and we'll ensure to get back to you. So we've got a few questions through. Are scholarships need-based or merit-based? I suppose neither. So you can view the eligibility criteria for these on our website. Obviously, it's dependent for some of those scholarships on what subjects you're studying, or yeah, if you would like to teach in a rural school. But yeah, just in terms of picking which one is most relevant to your degree and most relevant to your studies is what I'd recommend. I've got another great question here. So can you be a casual teacher in more than one school? You absolutely can be a casual teacher in more than one school. That's why it's great to really build those relationships while you're on prac, and it kind of broadens your opportunities there, which is great. So I've got another question here. So would you need to wait 5 years from initial teacher accreditation to have proficient teaching accreditation, and only then will you receive a salary increase? That's a really good question. So you can get your proficient accreditation in within the 2 years. So as Beverly explained before, you would do that through NESA, and then you could look at that increased salary of around $87,000 a year. Is it possible to apply for a scholarship without a tax file number? I'm not 100% sure on that one. If you would like to send us an email or contact us through Facebook, so scan those QR codes that are up on the screen now, we'll be able to get back to you on that one, but that's a really good question. So how do we go about an annual salary increase? So you would complete your proficient accreditation and then yeah, be eligible for a salary increase that way. Do teachers on a temporary work visa also get the rural incentives and benefits? That's a great question. So a majority of the programs that we have available, so things like the e-exchange, they are more so for permanent teachers. But if you are looking to teach rural and remote on a temporary contract, those incentives will still apply. So can international students apply for the approval to teach? That's a really good question. So in terms of applying for your approval to teach, in order to teach in a New South Wales public school, you do have to be a permanent resident or an Australian citizen. So you may be able to go through the process, but to actually teach in a school, you'd have to be either a permanent resident or a citizen. Just got one more here. So are the permanent positions in the scholarships program allocated to us? So you basically would put in your preferences, so areas that you'd be wanting to teach in. So for example, with the rural and remote scholarship, if you wanted to teach in inland, inland northern New South Wales, you would put that down as a preference, and then from there you could be allocated a school from there. In some cases you can choose specifically which areas you'd like to teach in. Just make sure to select, the schools that you actually do and the areas that you actually do want to teach in. And that way, you'll be able to take on that position without too much consideration. Just have a look in the chat. So I think that's everything. If I wasn't able to get to your question, we do have a virtual booth for the next few hours. So do please feel free to jump in there and we'll be able to answer any questions you might have. I'll hand back to Jeremy now. Thank you so much for your time today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Katie. That was really informative. And I hope all of the students attending today got quite a bit out of that, as much as I did. So I thought that was really interesting. And I do want to make it abundantly clear to all of the students joining us today that please go back to the original page that you came into this particular webinar from. At that particular point in time, you'll see a range of different employers and associations to essentially assist in terms of answering your personal questions and explaining a few different aspects of their offering in the education and teaching space. So go back to that, and the booths will be open for another hour from now. So we will be closing the booths at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And it's at this particular point in time that I will be closing this webinar, and you can make that sort of transition over. But thank you so much for joining me. Thank you again, Katie, and our panelists. That was really fruitful discussion. All right. Thanks, everyone.